I mourn places like I mourn people. Houses especially, often the reason I don't return to them is because the people I knew there, the people I loved, have moved, or died, or simply are not in my life anymore. There are many, many abandoned houses in my neighborhood, and I always wonder who lived there once. Do they miss the house? Does the house miss them? It feels like it does. My grandfather has a fascination with old, decrepit barns and farmhouses. He's notorious for pulling over his car on the highway to take pictures of lopsided barns so he can paint them later. I grew up wandering the halls of a house filled with paintings of old, rotting houses. They always felt so lonely to me in their Midwestern prairies. The paintings feel like walking through the woods only to stumble on a forgotten graveyard, the tombstones weather-worn, the names of whomever you stand on long gone. I wonder how my grandfather's house felt to hold the death portraits of so many other homes. Maybe that's where I found my fear of empty houses. What Remains of Edith Finch feels like a horror game to me. It isn't technically. Most people would call it a walking simulator. What Remains of Edith Finch tells the tale of, well, Edith Finch, a young woman returning to her ancestral home. Her family is haunted by a curse, you see. Every member of the Finch family will die, with one always living long enough to continue the cycle before they, too, succumb. Every room in the house is transformed into a memorial of the family members' lives, as well as their deaths. Each room is just as it was when they died, with their added portrait and an account of their untimely demise. The Finch patriarch immigrated to America with his daughter Edie and son-in-law Sven, in a desperate attempt to escape the curse that plagued them even then. He took his family's home and sailed it across the sea, finally seeing land and promptly sinking, killing Odin in the process. Odin is the first Finch to die in their new home. Because of this, Edie builds a cemetery before a house. 6 years before the game, Edith and her mother Dawn leave the house in a rush, hoping to escape the curse that has taken Edith's brothers, never expecting to see the house again. Edith watches out the back window of the car as the house and great-grandmother Edie fades into the distance. It's haunting, wandering room to room, knowing there is no other person present, has been no other person present for 6 years. Even the protagonist is unsettled by the house. As Edith herself puts it,
as a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words. Now, as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
I say that old houses feel lonely to me, but that's not quite right. Old, abandoned houses aren't just lonely, they remember what it's like to hold people. They still hold those private moments, and they don't know what to do with them. I'm afraid of the personal nature of a home. I am afraid of things it will say about me when I'm gone. Houses have always been an important part of who we are. Environment has a lot to do with the way we design a house, but society has even more to do so. In Catriona Mackey's essay, A Social History of Houses, The Hebridean Example, the author explores the architectural and social reasoning for the construction of homes in the Hebrides Isles of Scotland. The homes were uniquely designed to accommodate the culture of the island. As both a heating system, cooking system, and the location of social gatherings, the hearth was hugely important to the Hebridean life. And it showed in the homes. The hearth's placement in the house was central, and as the cultural needs shifted, so did the hearth, going from an open hearth to having a special internal wall and flue. I've now read quite a bit about Scottish chimney construction, and I hope you appreciate what I have done for you. I'm not even getting paid for this. Even centuries after the people were gone, the houses, mostly ruins, we can still learn so much about the people who lived there by their houses. Houses and vernacular architecture in general are not just a product of environment. They are also a manifestation of culture and belief, and as such encompass all the activities of a group or an individual, both material and spiritual. Like the hearth in Scottish homes, the curse makes up the culture of the Finch family. Like I said before, Edie builds a cemetery before she builds her new house, and as the Finches die, the house becomes less a home and more a mausoleum. It's obvious the family is unable to escape the curse as Edie's children begin to die one by one, their deaths then followed by her grandchildren's. If you look out the window to the sea anywhere in the house, you will probably see the old house, with its ominous red light peeking over the waves, a reminder of the family's curse and of your eventual fate. Late in the game, you hear a story from Edie herself.
No, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends.
To Edie, who has turned her home into a memorial to the dead, of course the grave would feel like an old friend. Remembering death is all she had left. The new Finch house is a haunted house. Not in the traditional sense, maybe there are no ghosts or malicious entities, but it's haunted by everything that has happened within it, everything that has happened before it. The house is not an enemy, but it is ever present in the story, the only character outside of Edith to always be there. The house has a lot to say. It does not hold just the Finch's trauma, but its own. Odin's death is memorialized by the statue in the graveyard, but the house is remembered by the telescope just off to the side. The house is haunted by the family's culture of death.
Even the fireplace had a story. Edie told me the bricks came from the original house, after it sank.
Edith mourns the loss of the old house so much that she builds the foundation of her new life on it, weaves its history into her new life. The very architecture of the new house holds the trauma of the curse, the trauma of the old house. Ultimately, I don't think it's the architecture that unsettles me about abandoned houses. I think my fear stems from the knowledge they hold something even more intimate than social structure. Pictures of abandoned homes in the middle of a moment are really the ones that leave my blood cold. Something about the abandonment of an intimate space so suddenly. Why did they leave? What happened? When you arrive at the Finch's house, the dinner table is still set with the remains of the family's last supper. 6 years abandoned. And it isn't just the kitchen that's stuck in a moment, it's every room. The bathroom, the bedrooms, the basement, even the crawl spaces hold the memories and touch of some Finch who has once been there. Edie had left the rooms open to be observed and entered, remembered, but after Edie's brother Milton disappears, lost to the house, her mother Dawn blocks the door, locking off their entrances. This doesn't stop Edie, however, who drills peepholes into the doors, determined to keep her memorials. As a story, What Remains of Edith Finch is obsessed with the personal, with the private. What else could it be? It's a game about wandering through the bedrooms of dead people, after all, poking through their things, reminiscing about their deaths. Narratives themselves are often personal, in the same way a room is. A story is built of private thoughts, decorated with personal affects, giving you an idea of who is telling them. The comparatively recent notion of privacy resonated in the new literary form and explores intimate, private spaces of the mind and society, often set within the middle class, household, and home. All of the death stories are told by one of the Finches, either by themselves or someone close to them. Each account is tainted by the storyteller's personal thoughts, but so much more is told through the environment, through the rooms themselves, and Edith's observations. There's a reason visual mediums use environmental storytelling. The way we build and decorate the space around us tells any interloper something about who we are, holding secrets no one else will ever know. Novels and houses furnish a dwelling place, a spatial construct that invites the exploration and expression of private and intimate relations and thoughts, which is precisely why Edith has to return.
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it. But now I had questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to.
A cursory examination of a room will give you a pretty good rundown of who I am as a person, from the kinds of technology I have, to the books on my shelves, to the art on my walls. My private space betrays so much about me. A deeper, more invasive exploration will net you even more. The things I deem private enough to tuck away will tell you so much more than I could probably tell you about myself, and the same goes for the Finch's house. Each room is a snapshot memory of something intimate, a moment in each Finch's life that only they and the house will ever truly remember. No one but the house will know what really happened to Barbara, or Gus, or Gregory, or Molly, or Milton. No one but the house shared their deaths with them. And only the house can tell Edith the truth she needs to know about the family she has lost. I don't just mourn places because of people who lived there. There are many places I mourn that I was alone, just me and the space. We shared a moment of connection, a memory that only the space and I will remember. Places have names like people. We capitalize them to signify their importance. We talk about the past haunting the walls of a house, about the land remembering what happened there. Places hold the things that we can't share, the things that are uniquely us. A place sees me at my most vulnerable. I cry sometimes, remembering the places I will never see again. I miss those places because they hold a part of me that is gone. There are times when an empty house feels malicious, like it resents the people who left it there to rot, who left it with only memories it can't expel. A house is the history of the people it held. It holds their trauma, and just like a person, that can tear it apart, leave it broken. But the Finch house isn't malicious. It doesn't hate its abandonment. I think it mourns it. I think it keeps a quiet, contemplative sadness about the things it has seen. It almost seems happy to have someone here again, even more so that it is someone it knows, someone it loves. Once Edith returns, her journey is smooth, welcoming. The house wants her here. It can finally share its secrets with someone who cares to know them. In Katerina Mackey's essay, A Social History of Houses, I don't know how to say this word, and I'm very sorry. The Hebridean example. The Hebridean example. We're going to go with that. And I said her name wrong, too.